Welcome back to Plot to Go, episode number 17. I'm Jack, and Owen is not here. If you are watching the video, you'll see it's just me. I finally got the corner seat, which I'm actually quite happy about. I don't normally get this seat. But Owen is gone. He's in the USA. So it's a solo episode today. So snuggle up and just listen to my smooth, sultry voice for, I hope, not too long. But I am a yapper. So this will really be an exercise in just how much I'm able to just talk to myself. And I'm probably going to scare myself with how long I'm able to do that. Which should be fun. Today, though, I am talking about Sinners, the new movie that's came out starring Michael B. Jordan, which is so good. I will get to it, but it's so good. If you've not seen it, please rush out and go see that movie. Alex Garland's new movie, Warfare, The Penguin Lessons. Those are the three movies that kind of came out on Friday last week. And then also, I'm just going to touch upon a few other things while I have you here. I think I'm going to touch upon The White Lotus a little, because that show is so good and I want to talk about it. Invincible Season 3 a little, and then also Daredevil finished this week. And I gave my first impressions on the first two episodes. I finally caught up now, so I will do a little bit of that. And then also, I'll probably give a little bit of Doctor Who, because I watched that episode. And what I have to say might shock you, because it shocked me. So, without further ado, I think we just go right into Sinners. This is Michael B. Jordan in a Ryan Coogler movie. Shock, he's in every Ryan Coogler movie. Ryan Coogler, the director of Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, Creed, Fruitvale Station. I think that's his only feature releases that he's done. Sinners follows Michael B. Jordan, who plays twins. He plays two characters. And they are returning to their home in Mississippi after living in Chicago. For working for Capone, I think, as well. I think that's mentioned in part of the movie. They come back to their hometown, they have a lot of money, and they have Irish beer, and they're deciding to set up a juke place for the town with this alcohol that they've got. And the movie kind of just follows them for a large portion of the movie, trying to set up this juke, employing different people in the town, different friends that they've had because they've been away for so long, kind of employing them back to help them set up this business with them. And then there's evil forces around, and that plan doesn't quite go as smooth sailing, shall we say. If you've seen any of the promotional material for this movie, I think they are giving away what this twist, if you could call it a twist, is. No spoilers, I will not spoil that twist for you. But they are giving it away in promotional material, which I find odd because sitting watching the movie, I actually think it would be more rewarding not to know. I knew going in, and I actually only knew because of a cast interview, I think. But the way that they play out this horror element, shall we say, is really smart. They seed it into the movie so intelligently that if you didn't know what was happening, I think you would think it's something else. So the main antagonists of this movie are, towards the start at least, these white people. And it is this kind of maybe racial commentary that you think it might be going down, but it doesn't end up going down that way. But it also does. It's really interesting. Yeah, I adored this movie. It kind of blew me away. It was getting great reviews out of press screenings and influencer screenings, I guess, if you could call them that, as the first big movie of 2025. It's been kind of slow. I mean, if you've been listening along, a lot of our comments in different episodes have been, should we go back and do some old movies, because some of these have been really rough, a majority of which I have seen, by the way, and suffered through. So to get a full balls to the wall blockbuster like this was really, really rewarding. I had been a fan of Coogler's work in the MCU. I haven't seen his work outside of that, but I think Black Panther is a solid movie. And I also think Wakanda Forever, something I rewatched very recently as well, is quite good. It is, in both of his movies, to be honest, they are covering such a broad scope of like history and present relevance and themes around racial tensions and stuff, but also integrating that into a blockbuster. And this movie is no different. He is also tackling a really large scope racial ideas and themes and boiling it into a blockbuster, and it just works. I think this is his best movie today. It is a wholly original story as well by him. It's the first original story that he's done. There is just a level of care and like a vision behind this movie that I feel is maybe lacking from a lot of different blockbusters, especially the superhero kind of genre now, which I guess kind of omitting his stuff. There's not many directors working in the superhero genre, the blockbuster kind of sphere, that have as much vision as him, and I think he's now proven it with the plethora of films that he's delivered that are able to be simultaneously really compelling blockbusters, but also really intimate, quiet stories as well. I think it's a feat, to be honest, to be able to do that. There's not a lot of other directors that can. This genuinely feels so unique and fresh as a movie, but as a blockbuster, my god, yeah, I don't think there's been a blockbuster like this in some time that has felt this refreshing. It's refreshing in the sense that you can't really pin this down. I was actually having conversations yesterday with people saying that I'd seen it, and they were asking what was it about, and I had a really hard time trying to kind of do a log line, give it in one sentence, because it's part Western, it's part historical, it's part like to do with like race, it's part horror, it's part gothic, it's its own unique thing, and I don't know how many movies you can say that about. That it is just solely in its own lane and there's nothing else like it. I mean, how cool is that? And yeah, I think he knocked it out of the park. From the first like 5 minutes, I kind of thought there was a lot of comparisons being made to Get Out, and I really did think, okay, we're going down the smart horror commentary route, because it is quite like horrifying, I guess, at the start. I should know, I'm prone to horror. It is not a genre I like. So going into this, I was a little trepidatious. I was like, I don't think I'm going to enjoy this as much as other people, because it's maybe a genre that I'm not the biggest fan of. But I think horror is actually quite a diminishing word for this. It's not a horror. Those first few minutes do rope you in with this like tension, and that permeates throughout the entire movie. But after those first 5 minutes, there is a whole chunk of this movie that is just you like living in this world that Coogler has created. You are following the two twins. They split apart and they meet different people in the town who are going to bring this Duke to life. And you are just a fly on the wall. You're meeting all of these like plethora of characters and learning the intimate relationships between Michael B. Jordan, whichever version of Michael B. Jordan, and these characters. And it's so rewarding because I guess some people could call it slow, but it never felt like that to me, because it just felt like you were welcomed in such a just like a beautiful way. It was like really encompassing. And then when the movie starts to take a turn, because you've built up such great relationships with these characters and you know them, you feel like you're a part of this world. When stuff starts happening to these characters, you feel for them way more emotionally. And I think a lot of horror specifically, or movies where you're dealing with character, how do I not spoil it? Dealing with characters that come and go, shall we say. Movies don't give you that time to build these relationships with them, so you don't feel as much for them. This movie is completely the opposite. You're invested in everybody and all their dynamics, and it's so smart for that. It is kind of trusting its audience to, enjoy this slower paced start. Again, I didn't find it slow, but I can see where other people would, because they will be rewarded for it. So if you do end up going to see this and you are finding that first little bit slow, just like enjoy it, because it will change, and you'll get so much out of it. What's also great as well is that first half, you're exploring the town, you're visiting different locations, all these different people, and the back half of the movie is all centered in this Duke. You hardly even leave it. It's kind of like one location. And that's so brilliant, because you've been given this expansive world and these characters to explore, and that you just feel a part of this like grand place that is suddenly completely constricted. You feel so claustrophobic, which is how the characters feel. You're meant to feel that way. So it really places you in their shoes, and it's so intelligent for doing that. Oh, yeah. The entire pacing and like the way that the story is structured, I think, is so intelligent, and it's nice to see a blockbuster that is saying to its audience, like, if you get this, you're going to get it. Well, I'm not going to dumb this down for you. Like, I love that. I guess a genre I didn't mention was musical, which if you heard the other genres, you're probably like, musical, I don't think that fits. But I would describe this as a musical in a way. Music is so integral to this movie. Ludwig Göransson did the score. He is the GOAT. You know his scores from, so many movies. I don't even know what he'd be most famous for. Perhaps his work on Black Panther. That music is so recognizable, I guess. But he is, in my opinion, I guess, one of the greatest film composers working right now. I'm a massive film score person. I don't know if it's really came up on the podcast yet. Maybe with The Brutalist. I just adore film scores. They can really like make or break a movie for me. And in this case, really made the movie. Music is integral. I mean, the whole idea of this movie is they're making this Duke for people to come together, play the blues. And there's this really interesting aspect of the blues being tied to like myth and different cultures, and like being like the devil's music and like inviting the devil in, like really fascinating ideas. This movie's really well researched as well. It feels like soaked in historical context and stuff. It's really, really great. But specifically with the music, Ludwig Göransson kind of blends these blues sounding like instruments with other genres, shall we say, that just makes for a fascinating score. And there is one scene, if you have seen the movie, it will blow you away. I mean, sitting there in the cinema, I was like just gobsmacked at what I was watching. I think it is so inventive and plays into this idea that Coogler is trying to like break away the lines between genre, which I think is really fascinating, to have the movie as itself be this genreless piece, and also the themes in the movie kind of be enhancing that as well, and also cutting down the lines between past and present and future. It's just fascinating, and the scene that I'm on about is it's maybe because it's in a blockbuster as well, it feels so profound. But I think this would feel profound in any movie. But sitting there in an IMAX screen seeing this, I was like, I can't believe that I'm seeing this in a blockbuster. And speaking of IMAX, my God, if you have the ability to go see this in an IMAX screen, go see it. Even if you're listening to this and you have seen it and you didn't see it in IMAX and there is the availability to do so, do it. It's gorgeously shot. It's shot on film, which you can tell. The film grain is so good. Who doesn't love film grain? I actually don't know anybody that's like, I prefer digital. And if there is a person out there that's like that, I would love to know. Because why? The film grain is beautiful. The aspect ratios as well maybe a little distracting sometimes for some people, but it has the letterboxing, and then often there's times where it will just fully expand into that beautiful IMAX ratio, and it's glorious and stunning to watch. So yeah, if you can see this at IMAX, definitely. I mean, even just the way it's shot with like such a shallow depth of field. I honestly think all blockbusters should be shot like the way this was shot. There's such like lovely bokeh behind the characters, and it just makes for even like conversational pieces where it's just characters talking. It looks so beautiful. Yeah, very, very lucky to have a blockbuster that looks this good. And it's stunning. The film is also filled with like such good performances. Michael B. Jordan, I don't think it really needs to be said how good he is in this. He's great in everything, and you get double the Michael B. Jordan in this, so what's not to love? He's got this ability to be so charming and charismatic, and sexy. Like, the movie is sexy as well, and he plays into that, but also can play into this like more grounded, gritty, harrowing person. And that dichotomy between these two, I mean, that it doesn't even just split to the two twins or whatever. It's within each twin there's those two aspects, and it's so good. And even saying that, the twins feel so distinctly unique as well, and they aren't necessarily given too much to work with that separates them, but they do feel unique. I mean, it helps that they're costumed slightly differently as well, and the costumes here are unbelievable. Off the top of my head, I think it is the same woman, Ruth Carter, I think. I may be wrong on this. Who did Black Panther, and her work in that is phenomenal, and it's phenomenal here. I loved like the smart tailoring and the kind of like modern twist that they had on the costumes. Which, in saying that, I don't know if that's particularly true. I don't know my 1930s American history all that well. But they were wearing like blue and red as the two twins, and it doesn't strike me as all that fitting for the period. But it didn't take me out or anything. I thought it was a really cool artistic choice. Perhaps it is from the 1930s. I don't know. Maybe I'm completely wrong. But the costumes, yeah, are wonderful. But across the board, the actors, the performances are great. As you move into this second half of the movie, it becomes more of an ensemble, and the ensemble's just brilliant across the board. You have Haley Steinfeld, who is great, and I think is really underrated just as a person. I think she delivers some really good performance. I mean, did she win an Oscar? Or was nominated for True Grit. I think she won. She's great in this. She's great in everything. She's a great singer. Surprised she didn't sing in this, because this movie revolves around music so much. And the back half, or like the middle section, it's kind of like musician after musician after musician, and the dancing and the score, and there's often somebody singing while scenes are playing out. Shocking she didn't. Thinking back on it now. But she's great, and she plays both sides to her character. I'll leave it at that. Very well. The rest of the cast, brilliant. If I'm to mention one person specifically, it'd be Wonmi Musaku, who is a standout in this. She oddly is like an exposition character. Like, she is there to kind of explain the mystical goings on of what's happening in the back half, but she delivers this exposition so expertly. Like, it's kind of shocking how it doesn't feel like exposition, and the only reason I'm really picking up on it is because I heard somebody else say that, she was an exposition character, and I was like, oh gosh, she is. Which is so bizarre that she becomes as compelling as she is, while also just kind of being there to like not explain the plot, but kind of help our characters understand what's going on. But I really enjoyed her, and yeah, the entire cast is just really strong. I don't think there was a single person who was kind of weak, and there's a newcomer as well, which I will get his name, but Miles Catton. He maybe is like second billing to Michael B. Jordan. He plays Michael B. Jordan, the twins' cousin. Um, and the movie starts with him and it focuses on him a lot throughout the movie. And he's great. For this to be like an introductory role for him, my God, what a role and what a performance. He's really, really good. I couldn't recommend this enough. If you've been put off by like maybe the fact that it's like an art house horror movie that has like social commentary and you're kind of sick and tired of that stuff, I understand. It is not like that. I wouldn't try seek out any promotional material. If you are swithering, just go see it. Go see it on a big screen, the biggest screen possible that you can, because it's deserving of it. And we just don't get a ton of original movies that are as good as this. We've had tons of original movies come out recently. We've covered them here, that are not particularly amazing, to put it lightly. But when a movie like this happens, something really, really original and unique and good, I really just hope people go out and see it, so that we can keep getting more like this. So yeah, that was Sinners. Go check it out. Okay, so I have a fun surprise. Between my reviews this episode, I've been sent 3 videos from Owen. I have absolutely no idea what's in these because he told me not to open them. So I guess we're going to find out together. I'll put them on the screen, I think, so you can watch along, because I'm just going to sit here and watch it. But yeah, let's see what these are about, I guess.
Hey Jack, so I tried to record you a question before, and I couldn't because I was in heavy wind on a trail. Currently I'm out of breath. I'm on the trail to see now I'm sitting on a very peaceful porch. So I thought I could ask you the question without getting the wind to ruin the video. So my question was, because we were in Arches National Park, we were near Double Arch, which was used in the filming of one of the Indiana Jones films. I'm still not sure which one. I need to look that up. But I thought I'd ask you, what's your favourite Indiana Jones film? What's your least favourite? Or at least what you think is the worst? And what you think also gets the hardest time out of all of them? What you think gets like the most unjustified comments about it. And I'm imagining that some of these answers might overlap, but that's okay. So anyway, hope you're having a good time on the podcast by yourself. See ya. Goodbye from Utah.
So I hope that came up on the screen okay. I've been asked a question. There's going to be so many questions in this episode, but that's good. We love questions. Indiana Jones, gosh. I guess, when was the last time I rewatched them for Dial of Destiny. Shout out, great movie. My favorite is easily Raiders. I think that's maybe the obvious answer and the one that maybe everybody would go for, but I'm nothing if not basic, I guess. The thing that sticks out in my brain in Raiders specifically is the action scene that's like when he's like on the truck and he's like scaling over the trucks and underneath the truck. I genuinely think, and I've seen like some of the Mad Max movies, I genuinely think that is one of the greatest car action sequences still. Yeah, I just really like Raiders. I think Raiders is the obvious answer. I don't think I'm going to say anything that profound about Raiders of the Lost Ark. And then I don't think this is that unique an answer either, but the worst is Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, obviously. However, I do have like sentimental value towards that movie because I saw it on my 7th birthday. Gosh, what year did Crystal Skull come out? Yeah, I saw it on my 7th birthday. Went to Pizza Express, had some garlic dough balls, and then saw Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. What a birthday. And I remembered that movie being so good because I really enjoyed that day. Rewatched it recently. Not good. However, It is a little bit fun. I mean, like climbing into a fridge to survive a nuclear bomb. I mean, come on. What other Indiana Jones is doing that? And also, Kate Blanchett in a cunty little bob. Is she in a bob? She is in a bob, surely. I'm not making that. Yes, she is in a bob. You can't be a bob. So I'm not going to say that that gets the hardest time because she's in a bob. Hardest time? Maybe I will say Dial of Destiny. I could also say Temple of Doom. But Temple of Doom does have odd racial moments, I guess. Dial of Destiny, I think, does get a little bit of a hard time. It isn't incredible. I also could have been in that movie. Here's another fun story attached to Indiana Jones. I was meant to be an extra in that movie because during COVID, I really grew out my hair and they were looking for men with really long hair because it was set in the 70s or something. And I fully had like signed forms and stuff to go through to Glasgow and film the scene where it's like the American parade. And literally like a week before, I got an email saying that they had to like postpone the filming a bit because something happened to Harrison Ford. Like he injured himself. And then the next time that it rolled around, they were having like limited extras. And I got cut, which sucks. So I could have been in Indiana Jones, but I'm not. So that's sad. I don't know. I think it's not good. It's not good. But it's... I don't know. I don't know if any of these are particularly get a hard time. I'm just saying Dial of Destiny, I guess, because there's slight elements that I like, but it's also like the rehashing of the franchise shit that I just don't like and I think needs to stop. But Indy's story and that's interesting. I think the way that wraps up's pretty interesting, and I don't know. I like Phoebe Waller-Bridge in that movie as well, because who doesn't like Phoebe Waller-Bridge? Am I right? So thanks, Owen, for that question. I'm presuming I will have another question from Owen soon, but first I will get to Warfare, which is the next movie I'm going to talk about. If you've not heard of Warfare, very simple story. It is about a platoon of American Navy SEALs that go on a surveillance mission in Iraq that goes wrong. And it is based upon the memories of the soldiers who were on that mission. It is directed also by one of those soldiers, Ray Mendoza, and also Alex Garland, who you'll know from films like Civil War, Men, why am I blanking? Annihilation, and Ex Machina. I was a little bit apprehensive going into this. By the way, that's like the plot. The plot is just that mission. It is 90 minutes of that mission playing out in real time, basically. Yeah, I was apprehensive going into this because I wasn't a massive fan of Civil War, which was Alex Garland's previous movie. When that came out, there was a lot of discourse around the political nature of that movie and whether or not it was like apolitical or if it was actually trying to say something and all of this stuff. I enjoyed it as a piece of cinema for like journalism, photojournalism. I thought that aspect was really interesting. But when it came to the political side of things, I did have a little bit of a hard time grasping with it. However, I did end up getting to see Alex Garland at a conference that he did in Edinburgh last year. And it was, what was it about? Oh, it was just a conversation with him, I guess, about filmmaking and writing and different things. And one of the questions that he was asked was about his like critical reception to Civil War. And he spoke about the idea of it being apolitical. And he said that nothing is apolitical. And from his point of view, he is a centrist. And what he was saying with that movie was deeply political. But people are so far on the extremes now and want things to be black and white, left and right, that actually having a more centrist point of view was deemed as apolitical, and he just disagrees with the criticisms that were thrown his way. Ever since then, this was so long ago as well, I'm like, I'm going to rewatch this movie because it did kind of I don't know, it rung true for me. I could sympathize with what he was saying, and I really want to rewatch it with the lens of it being kind of more like centrist point of view. And there are political ideas being explored, but it's just not necessarily clear cut left and right. Um, all that to say, going into this movie, I was a little bit like, oh no, is this going to be like a centrist take on the American war in Iraq? And what does that mean? And I saw, because this came out in the States a little bit before the UK, a few reactions that I kind of tried to like just swipe past and not read, that were kind of not, they weren't vibing with the political nature of this movie, whatever that means. I'm really glad to say that I absolutely adored this, and I think it is equally as good as Sinners, and you should definitely try go see this in the cinemas. It is, if you've not already. If you've seen it already, I'll be very curious actually to hear people's thoughts on this. This to me is just like quintessential anti-war movie, which I think is very hard to do. The nature of a narrative being constructed out of a war, I think, often means that you are implicitly endorsing or like glorifying, or not endorsing, but glorifying war in a way. And this movie is absolutely not that. You get a little scene at the very, very start, which is like the camaraderie of the soldiers who are there on the mission. And then, as I said, it is then 90 minutes of a mission playing out kind of in real time, which is the stories from the memories of these people who went through this. And it is a full-on horror movie. It's so disturbing, but I really respect for this because it doesn't try to string a narrative together. It doesn't try to explore different characters and give them backstories and make you feel for them. It is very much like you're watching not a doc. It's not as it's not portrayed like a documentary in a way, in that sort of way. It's very much its own thing, but it's not the narrative that you're used to with war movies. It's so singular in its vision, to be honest. And I suppose that comes with the fact that this was somebody's lived experience and they are literally just trying to portray it as it was in a neutral way. I guess this kind of sentiment that maybe is coming through from Civil War, this idea that you're being a neutral person and you're just showing something as it is. And I think that really worked for me in this movie. It's basically just showing war and showing it for what it is. And in this movie, I think the message is that it's wrong. Wow, shocker of a message, war is bad. But I think as well, the way that our society is at the moment, or kind of in the last little few decades and stuff, there has been this glorification of war through things like Call of Duty and stuff like it, where it is like action and like there's this like masculine mentality that's associated with soldiers and stuff, and this camaraderie and this brothership, and it doesn't, I don't like the word endorse, but it seeks to show soldiers in a light that maybe isn't the reality of war. And this movie does that. The first half of this movie, maybe a little bit less, is literally them in a building, a house, a Iraqi people's home that they decide to just like camp up in. And they're there and they're just surveilling. And that is, this movie's only an hour and a half. That's maybe about 40 minutes in the movie. And you're just watching them aimlessly recount and surveil stuff because they don't know what's going on. And I think that emphasizes this point of like the whole Iraqi or Americans in Iraq. This like the entire war there. It was this pointlessness of why they were occupying, or not occupying, sorry, why they were in Iraq. And this movie kind of seeks to be like a microcosm for that, I guess, because they are in this home, occupying or staying in this home, and they don't really know what they're doing. They're kind of just sitting ducks. They're waiting for something to happen. When that something does happen, it's horrifying. The start of this movie is very like art housey. You are just like wandering around this home, following the soldiers do their like little menial, not even menial, I guess, like the little jobs that they have, whatever that may be. You're not learning about the characters and exploring their personal lives or whatever. You are just like following them doing their jobs. And I actually, I'm gonna nip that in the bud there. The way that this is being marketed, as in like advertisements, and then the way that this is being marketed as in promotion, feel very much at odds with what the movie is. The marketing feels like this Call of Duty, look at this war movie, you're gonna enjoy this, like soldiers, blah blah blah, like how every other war movie is marketed essentially. And then the like promotional stuff is like all the internet's boyfriends are doing like interviews together, and Charles Melton and Kit Connor are kissing. Like all of the marketing just does not feel like what this movie is, and I wonder if there's an element of people judging the movie based on the marketing as well, because because it's like not cohesive. I don't know. Interesting to think about, I guess. But yeah, once the kind of like back half of this movie starts happening and things go south, shall we say, it's uncomfortable to watch. It's raw, honest, ugly, harrowing, another adjective. And you just have to sit there. It's so visceral to watch. There was moments, shocker if you've been listening to this podcast, I cry in movies. This is not a like profoundly sad, emotional movie or anything, but there was moments that I was tearing up just because of like putting yourself in that situation and what these young men were experiencing. I just think is, yeah, I can't even imagine it. I think it's horrible. The sound design in that back half as well is so incredible. Sorry, I should have mentioned that with Sinners as well. I mean, both of these movies have incredible sound design. But Warfare is so unrelenting in this second half as well. First half, very void of sound, very silent, very methodical. And then this back half, the wailing of some of these people that persists. There's essentially constant wailing for like the entirety of the back half that is ingrained in me, I guess now. It's really, really hard to watch. But the cut between this like wailing that's constantly happening and, you know, they have headphones that are like, they're constantly communicating with different groups and air forces and different stuff. And there's like one point in the movie that's like spectacular, that is the wailing and all this headphone noise and other noise and da-da-da, and it's like so overwhelming. Like I felt myself getting so anxious, but in a very complimentary way. They use silence brilliantly, cutting between, you know, this oppressive sound and then such like a void like of silence. It's really quite special. And then also muffled sounds as well. How that was used, like just the sound design overall makes that back half feel so intense, in a brilliant way. As I was saying, I think it is genuinely a strength of this movie that they decided not to explore the characters and kind of just keep them as people, like abstracting the soldiers from the people, or yeah, so that you're just watching like a person. So you could place yourself in their shoes, but that's not to diminish any of the actors in the movie. I think they all do a wonderful job at just authentically portraying these people. And I was a little bit concerned again with that whole like they're promoting it with the internet's boyfriends kind of thing. I was a little bit concerned at the cast that they'd assembled, that maybe it would feel quite Hollywood and like polished, and I never felt like that though. They all do such a good job. Specifically, Defaro Winnatai, who, if you've not seen him in anything, he's in a show called Reservoir Dogs. I couldn't recommend enough. One of the best shows to come out in the last few years. Truly phenomenal show that I feel like nobody watched, but he's the lead in that show, and he's essentially the lead in this movie. He plays Ray Mendoza, who is the soldier who co-directed this, and he's just wonderful. Again, you're not really learning much about these characters, but the emotional turmoil that they're going through, I mean, they have to showcase that, and it's truly wonderful. Again, the entire cast is, but specifically him, and I would say Joseph Quinn as well, who's on a streak. This man is like really in really good movies. I think his role in Stranger Things is great. His role in A Quiet Place Day One was really good as well. I'm sure I've seen him in something else, but now I can't remember. Something else. And now this. I'm so looking forward to see what he does with Johnny Storm in Fantastic Four. Because he makes you feel so uncomfortable in this movie in a great way. In a very complimentary way. But my God, the amount that he gave to this performance, it's something else. It's truly, truly wonderful. I do want to address maybe the criticisms that are thrown towards this movie. Just from I've read quite a bit about this movie and trying to understand the other perspective on it, and I think a lot of people are saying that they wanted to know more about the Iraqi people, that the Americans coming into their home, how that was affecting them. And I think that is certainly something that should be explored, but I don't think this was the movie to do it in. I think that deserves its own story. Ray Mendoza told a authentic and genuine story to him, to the people that he was there with. And I think it's special that we have a narrative depiction of what happened from their point of view. What other war movies can you point to that you can say that it was completely authentic? Again, there'll be narrative decisions in this as well, I'm sure. Or actually, in saying that, I don't really know, because the movie, this is not spoiling it, but the movie ends with here's the soldiers that actually were, a part of this group, and they show behind the scenes of some of the soldiers who came to set. So I wonder if this is just a full recount. I mean, it starts with this is based on the memories of people who were there. So it perhaps is just an authentic recount of the situation, which I think is even more interesting. But that perspective still shows the damage that was done by the Americans. It's just from their point of view, not from the Iraqi people's point of view. And I think that's interesting, and that is a narrative worth exploring. Authentic depiction. They are not saying that the Americans in this are good people. There's no good, bad, blah, 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 that kind of stuff. It's just trying to be a neutral point of view in this, in what they're doing. There is a point in the movie where they have Iraqi translators who are with the American soldiers, and they have to leave this home at one point. I guess, right, maybe skip 30 seconds if you don't want to know anything about this movie, but they make sure that the Iraqi soldiers go out first before the American soldiers, because they value their lives less. That is straight up, I think, implying that the Americans are not these great heroes in this movie. And I just think there's so many instances of that it's screaming that this movie is anti-war and anti-everything the Americans did in Iraq. And I find it really interesting that not everybody's holding that sentiment. I really do. I just find this really profound. Genuinely. It's gritty, oppressive filmmaking. You are in such close quarters with these men. You feel like you're there. It's so harrowing. The opening shot kind of, as I was saying, this camaraderie of soldiers and this brotherhood. contrasting that with where this film ends and how it ends up, I think is so powerful. If other people haven't walked away feeling like that, cool. But this was wonderful. This really affected me, and I encourage everybody to see this if you've not. I think it is a movie well worth seeing. So yeah, that was Warfare. I guess I have another question now. So bear with.
Alright, Jack, I thought I'd ask you one other question since I'm not there. Considering you've lost one half of the podcast, your co-host, yours truly, I thought I'd ask you who else you'd want on the podcast, not as a guest, but as a co-host. So my answer for this that I'm going to steal would be Caesar Flickerman from The Hunger Games. I just think that would be fucking hilarious. So yeah, who would you have co-host with you? It has to be a fictional character, just to be clear. It can't be someone that's real. So have fun with that.
Wow. I'm really disappointed that this has to be a fictional person, because my god, the chances that I could have to meet somebody in real life. I mean, my answer for a real person, I think, would just be, oh my god, no, wait, there's too many answers. I can't. I'm going to go down a rabbit hole if I do this. My first thought, I have the Challengers poster up in front of me, and my first thought would be Zendaya. I think she seems like such a chill hang, and I think would make a great podcast. Fictional character though. You know what? I'm actually kind of annoyed that he answered that question, because now in my brain I'm like, oh, Caesar Flickerman is the best answer you could get for this type of question. I mean, the hosting skills of that man. I guess I could go for his like great granddad in Songbirds and Snakes. But I like, my recollection of that movie is that he's actually not that good as a host. Gosh, this is so difficult. Okay, I've had to cut out so much dead air because I literally cannot think of anybody. I'm like looking through different movies and stuff, and I'm like, oh gosh. Do you know what I could say? I could say this to piss Owen off. I could say The Doctor, which would be really funny because he's not here. He can't argue back with me. This actually, I have my answer. It would be Shiv Roy from Succession, because I think having one of the Roys on would be hilarious. I think the content that could come from that would be really interesting, and I'd be really interested to see Shiv's opinions on movies. What kind of movies does she like? In my opinion, she's probably like a Wolf of Wall Street girl. Like she's a film bro. Maybe I've got it wrong, but yeah, I would love Shiv Roy to host the podcast with me. So, Owen, if you're not here next week, Shiv Roy's coming. Okay, for this next little segment, I'm gonna go 3 rapid reviews, because I do not have an awful lot to say about the Penguin Lessons, which you'll learn soon. So I'm gonna go Penguin Lessons, The White Lotus, and Invincible. There's timestamps if you want to jump about. As usual, the movies will not have spoilers, so the Penguin Lessons I'm not going to spoil. So stick around. But The White Lotus and Invincible, I will talk about spoilers, I think. So you can jump to the next question if you feel like doing that and you haven't seen them. But first up, The Penguin Lessons. If you have not heard of The Penguin Lessons, because I genuinely don't think anybody is going to, considering, especially in the UK, Sinners is out this week, and also Warfare. I don't think this is going to get the kind of hullabaloo that the other two are going to get. But this is based on a book, which is I think it's like a memoir of this man whose name is Tom Michel. And it's set in 1976. He is an English teacher who goes to this like private boys' school. And he's a little bit like a jaded man. He's like angry at the world, I guess. And one day on a trip to some other country, I actually can't remember where, I think it's maybe Venezuela, he discovers a penguin in oil slick, and he rescues it. He rescues it to impress a woman, but because that woman, he's like in a random country, for like a few days. That woman leaves and he's left with a penguin, and he has to look after this penguin through a variety of hijinks and stuff. And he learns to love and see the world through brighter eyes because he's looking after this penguin. If you couldn't tell from that kind of description, this very much feels like a I don't want to be ageist. This just feels like a weekend stick it on when you're hungover movie, maybe. Like, it's very easy, it's very palatable. The movie is kind of split into like two halves. One half is tackling Tom Michel's relationship with this penguin and him developing to, be a bit more positive about the world, I guess. And the other half is, because this is set against the backdrop of Argentina when there was a dictatorship, it's kind of tackling the oppression that those people are facing, which is relatively interesting, but the movie doesn't really go all that deep into that side of things, so it leaves a little bit to be desired, sadly. The penguin stuff is cute and interesting, I guess. This movie's just like really easy. There's not an awful lot to say about it. It's very just like I'm trying to think of another movie I could compare it to. It's just fine. And it's not like, because I spoke last week about The Amateur, where I was like, I really didn't enjoy that movie because it's aggressively mid and there's nothing going for it. I also would call this aggressively mid, but it still has charm to it, and there is like love in it. I could see some people getting emotionally affected. I mean, I was a little bit emotionally affected towards the end, because it fully just plays on your heartstrings, and not in an outlandish way. It's very easy, like you'll see it coming, but yeah, it's not doing anything that profound. I guess the sad thing about this is that there are movies that have done both aspects of this movie better. There are better movies for a man learning to see the good in the world again, and there are better movies that are dealing with like dictatorships and the like. Argentina 1985, I think, is a movie. I think that's the name of it, which also deals with the dictatorship in a better way than this. And I'm sure there's plenty of others. So yeah, this movie ends up just being this like weird spot where it's caught between the two, and it's not doing anything, either of them, particularly amazingly. So it's kind of just fine. I feel like if you haven't seen this, you'll know if this is your sort of movie, and if it is, then go see it. If it's not, this is totally just give this one a miss and go see Sinners and Warfare. I should mention with Warfare, I really enjoyed that, but that's not for everybody. I think some people will be too emotionally affected by it, and if you are, and if you know that you will be, don't go see it, maybe. Or do. I'm not in charge of your life. Have fun. Next, right, let's talk about The White Lotus, because my god, that season was so good. I have been a massive fan of The White Lotus from season 1. We watched season 1 live. Every time this show rolls around, I get so excited, especially after season 2. Season 2 tackled such interesting themes in such like palatable ways. I think that's what's genius about Mike White, is that, and this becomes true for this season as well, he packages thematic elements as characters. It's never force-fed or ham-fisted, cough cough Doctor Who. It feels all like it's coming from within the character, and he's exploring these characters as like a connected web, and that is what informs the thematic goings of the season, and I just find that deeply, deeply interesting. This season, I have went back and forth on where I'd rank it between the 3 seasons. I think this is the second best. I do prefer this to season 1. I think their characters are more rich and interesting than season 1. It has nothing on season 2 though. Season 2 is like a masterpiece in my opinion. But yeah, I what I found completely interesting about this season, the main thing, was how it explored masculinity and like this idea of performative masculinity specifically. I think all of the men in this season get some sort of arc that is dealing with masculinity in such an interesting way. It's interesting because as we were going through the season, I know a lot of the complaints were that it was slow. I do think it was purposefully slow, and if I'm being completely honest, I don't think it was more slow than seasons 1 or 2. Maybe a little, but like not dramatically for people to be all up in arms about it. But I also do think it was purposeful that it was slow because they were exploring the idea of like performative spirituality, and the idea of slowing down your life and going to Thailand kind of plays into that. So I think it was purposeful that it was slow, and I'm using air quotes for those listening, in the sense that character arcs unfolded more slow than previous seasons. I mean, we had more episodes this season, so it kind of makes sense as well. But I just think that allowed Mike White to explore more characters and in more depth, and specifically the men. I think the Ratcliffe family are so interesting. The dad, it was so interesting about the dad is that he's going through it, and not a single person in his family is noticing. And I feel like that is speaking to the idea of this, you know, he is having to be this breadwinner for the family, and all this pressure is being placed on him on the daily, and none of the family really care, which is so interesting, as it kind of just speaks to that destructive stereotype that we've placed in like masculinity with like a lot of these characters, the two brothers, who I think maybe are my most the people I was interested in the most. Them and the three women, which I'll get to. But the brothers storyline, outside of the shock horror incest stuff, I think is just really interesting in how we depict like youthful masculinity now, specifically with Lachlan, who I find so interesting in this season, you know, not really knowing where his story was going, or like what the purpose, I guess, of his character was. And this realization he comes to in the end where he's like, I'm a pleaser. I seek to like just make everybody happy in the family. And how that maybe speaks to, I mean, this is never fully addressed in the show, but in the first episode, him perhaps being queer and maybe not wanting to come to terms with that because of pleasing his southern family. Like, I think there's just so much with him that's that could be explored. I mean, I could go on and on and on about each character individually, but I won't. Saxon as well being kind of this other facet of masculinity where he has placed so much value in his work, and that's who he deems himself. He sees himself through his dad's work, and when that starts to fall apart, he seeks validation elsewhere, external validation, and he seeks it out through Chelsea. And then when that's not reciprocated, it's like he's not being validated at all. You think is what's so interesting about Saxon as well is like the penultimate episode. You think he's coming to this realization of like, I don't need external validation, and I'm comfortable in myself. And that weird thing that happened with my brother, I need to like look internally. But by the like last episode, that's not the case, and he does go back to seeking external validation. Fascinating. Guy Talk, who him and Lalisa Mook, I think had the weakest storyline throughout the entire season. I just was not interested whenever it cut back to them. But the culmination of his story and like the pressures put on him by Mook to be this more masculine figure who's like violent when he is a man that is clearly non-violent and does not want to participate in that, is really interesting. And then there is Rick. Rick would be the last. Well, Rick and what's the guy's name? Frank, Sam Rockwell. They're kind of storyline, Rick being like so, blindsided by revenge that he's unable to see the love that he has right in front of him. That and how that plays into like this masculine archetype, and then also Frank and his entire monologue, just such a plethora of interesting takes about masculinity that, yeah, Mike White's just a genius with his writing. I'm not going to go on and on and on about each of the characters, but I do need to mention the three women, the girls. What a fascinating story. This like build up throughout the entire thing of, you think it's going to culminate in them arguing and them reaching like a head, and it doesn't, and it results in this like lovely resolution between these three friends, and them kind of acknowledging that they have resorted back to their younger selves when they're with each other. I thought I was blindsided by that being the resolution to their story, and I was blown away by that. Just an all round great season of TV. Such interesting actors giving such great performances. The bits I didn't love, Mook and Guy Talk's story wasn't all that interesting until the end. Similar sort of thing with Belinda. She kind of like plods along the entire season, not really knowing what to do, and then she gets an interesting bit at the end that's fascinating in itself, and how that plays into what happened to her. Really interesting. But as this like a season thing, it wasn't as captivating as the other stories. And not even just in a comparison way, it just was not captivating, I would say. But yeah, really enjoyed the White Lotus season 3. And I think people should stop going to the White Lotuses. If in this universe, my God, that's 3 places now somebody's been killed? Like, let's maybe stop going to White Lotuses. Anyway, very briefly, I will touch upon Invincible season 3. Like, super brief. This will be so quick. I stopped watching Invincible season 2. I think episode 4, I watched it with my brother, and it's, we don't always align with times to watch stuff, so it was kind of hard to watch that anyway. And then there was that massive break in the middle of season 2, and we just never got around to it because we weren't that engaged with season 2. Did eventually finished it very recently as well, right before season 3. It's fine. And then we finished season 3 in a day? 2 days? No, I think it was literally a day. Wow. Right back to where season 1 was. Such a compelling season of television. I loved it centering Mark and Cecil as this like kind of like Civil War kind of story where you are seeing both sides. They are valid, in my opinion, on both sides, and how that kind of culminates throughout the season. Mark just gets so many different characters to explore himself with that I think his storyline in season 3 is far more interesting than season 2. Season 2, he's dealing with everything with Omni-Man, and that is interesting, but I think him getting a wider variety and scope of storylines with different characters is more compelling, to be honest. I loved the Invincible War and where that went, and the finale, I thought it was so compelling, again, compared to season 2. Us bringing back Angstrom, I can't remember his name, Angstrom Lang or Lee, whatever, that guy from season 2, and actually him having more of a job to do or more of a purpose in season 3, I thought was really interesting as well. The thing about the show that I think is great is that they're able to give so much screen time to a wide variety of characters and give them depth and arcs. It feels, I don't think there's anything else on TV like it right now. The only thing that I could maybe compare it to would be like a Game of Thrones or like House of the Dragon, I guess, now. But even then, this feels like more characters, and you're getting to know more characters more intimately. It's it's truly wonderful. Really enjoy season 3, and I highly recommend it if you stopped like me in season 2. Season 3 is well worth it. Okay, I have another question, so let's do that before we dive into another review, shall we?
Hey Jack, got another question for you. Just because we're out here in snowy Durango now, after the sun, I want to know your favourite sort of weather-based film or weather-based scene in a film. So, back to you. Bye.
Well, that's a really interesting question. Weather-based movies. I have like season-based movies, I guess, that come to mind. My favorite movie of all time, La La Land, goes through all the different seasons. Um, and I particularly enjoy summer movies. So like The Talented Mr. Ripley just always screams like summer to me. But weather-based specifically, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is like Twisters or like disaster movies like that, which I wouldn't say are my favorite. Um, Gosh, yeah, weather, like, this is difficult. Maybe I'll just go with that, like summer. What weather do you like? Summer? Talented Mr. Ripley is maybe my favorite summer movie. God, is there any movies that are like to do with rain? Like where rain or like clouds are a big part of the movie? Cloudy with the Chance Meatballs. My God, that is my answer. That is my favorite weather-based movie. Is Cloudy with the Chance Meatballs. Easy. I'm so happy I stumbled upon that. And now finally, the last review. We got Daredevil Born Again. Oh no. If you go back and listen, it will have been a few episodes back now. I reviewed episode 1 and 2, and my thoughts were not glowing, sadly. I'm a massive fan of the original Netflix show, and I was looking forward to this. I had my apprehensions because of the creative overhaul that apparently happened, that did happen, where it was meant to be a detachment from the Netflix series, and then they rewrote it so that the Netflix series would be this new series would be a continuation of the Netflix series. Finishing episode 2, I thought there was some storylines that maybe would take an interesting turn. So I did have a little bit of faith, but this show bombed in my opinion. I see some people glazing it and loving it, and I really don't understand how. I think structurally the show is an absolute mess. You can feel that it is two shows mashed together, and that sucks. Like, the creative overhaul is clear that it happens in the pilot, and then it happens in the last 2 episodes. Primarily because, well, those are the episodes that feature Bullseye, Karen, and Punisher. Punisher appears, I guess, in the middle as well. But that feels like, again, just like... That actually could have been a part of the other show, I guess. Anyway, they're so detached from each other. It's nuts. The first episode starts with this idea of, like, somebody's killed Foggy. Then we cut a year in the future. None of that's addressed. And it's never addressed again until the penultimate episode. And it being his best friend, you think there'd be some level of interest into who hired Bullseye to kill his best friend. But apparently not. The overarching problem with the show is that it is a pale imitation of the Netflix show in every regard. And that sucks. The writing, for sure, which I think I'll dive into more in depth, is a massive step down from the Netflix show. And this is somebody who like look, when I watched the Netflix show I was a kid, so maybe like thinking back I'm like, oh, that was great for when I was a kid. I've rewatched part of it. I was hoping to get through all of it. I absolutely could not get through 3 seasons of 13 episodes before this came out, but I rewatched part of it, and even the first like 3 episodes, not a single episode of the new show reaches the heights of the first 3 episodes of the Netflix show, which is nuts. In character, in choreography, in cinematography, in the music, in the opening credits scene, like every single aspect of the show is sadly worse. And that sucks. And you could argue that, well, this is its own thing. Why are you comparing it to the Netflix show? And I completely understand that. But on its own, I still think this is a bad show. And I would go as far to say that this is one of the worst Marvel Disney Plus shows. At least in the bottom half. It's nowhere near as bad as Secret Invasion, don't worry. But it's not good. and I preferred a lot of shows to this that probably people wouldn't agree with. But yeah, for me, because there was such goodwill and such a love for the previous show, it's hard not to compare it to that. But they get rid of Karen and Foggy at the start of the season, and you are introduced to a plethora of new characters. And I think I would have said in my episode 1 and 2 review, I wasn't particularly attached to any of them, bar the therapist, but I was interested to see where all of their stories would go. They don't go anywhere. Or they do, but it's really uninteresting. The characters are not afforded any level of depth, bar Matt and Fisk, who I'll get to. But the side characters are just so uninteresting, and they are having to fill the void of Karen and Foggy, and not a single one of those characters comes close. So because you are comparing it to this previous show, it just sucks because you're not invested in any of these people. When it comes to Matt and Fisk, the show kind of paints it as a dichotomy. The overarching plot of the show is that Daredevil, or Matt, is going to, go back to being Daredevil. He's going to devolve in a way, and Fisk, also being the mayor, trying to be an upstanding citizen, is also going to devolve and become Kingpin again. An interesting story, I guess, on paper, but it's not in the show. Matt, from episode 2 to episode 6 or whatever, where he suits up again, there's no real inciting incident for him to suit up, apart from the fact that somebody he knows gets kidnapped, and that's enough for him to put on the suit. There's no real internal turmoil that you're dealing with of why he's grappling with not wanting to be Daredevil. He just isn't. We're not exploring him internally like the previous iteration of the show was. They strip him away of the religious aspects. He's never once in a church talking to a pastor and being like, oh, there's this thing inside me, or whatever it may be. There was other avenues that his character was afforded in the previous show that allowed him to explore his character internally, and none of that is here, sadly. And Fisk is just bad. From the start, he's doing bad things. I think his storyline is a little bit more interesting because you could argue that he's trying to be upstanding and learn how to be politically right, and then realizing that doesn't get stuff done as fast as he wants, and he wants it to be his own way, so he takes over and takes things into his own hands. Sounds like somebody in charge of a certain country. Ha, not ha. But I guess there is an interesting aspect there. It just, again, there's no internal look at Fisk as a character or exploration of him in any sort of interesting way. And I just found it boring, honestly. And they do this thing where it's if there's scenes that are happening simultaneously between the two characters that's meant to be interesting, or they're meant to parallel each other, they edit between them. But often they don't parallel each other. So you're just editing between scenes, and the editing just feels chaotic. The editing across the board is kind of rough as well. That paired with the bad choreography, none of the fight scenes hit. There isn't that many, but none of them hit. The gratuitous violence is, again, a pale imitation of the previous show. It's, quite... it's just sad that this is what's came from the overhaul, I guess. I am looking forward to season 2 because it is going to be the original people in charge again, and maybe they'll be able to salvage what they've done to the show. But it's so interesting. Where we end up is comical. The great thing about Daredevil in the original show is that it could have existed in the MCU. It now does. There are so many heroes in New York, but the storylines that they were dealing with were so street level and so personal that, it's not... The omission of Spider-Man is not whoa, where's Spider-Man? Why is he not dealing with Kingpin? In this, the reason Foggy was killed is because he discovers that there's a place called Freeport that is under no jurisdiction. No laws are overseeing this place. And Fisk and Vanessa have uncovered that. And so did Foggy, and he gets killed for it. But you're meaning to tell me that there's part of New York that, or I guess not part of New York, that has no laws, and Fisk can do whatever he wants there. Like, there obviously it's all based on comic books, and there's comic-y shit that happens in all of these shows. For some reason, that just felt so crazy in the world of the MCU when we've seen New York so much. And then for him to have like 10 like anti-vigilante police force people, helping him. Then when Matt goes to that port and it's swarming with them, where did all these people come from? And then he's like, I'm going to build a team. You're like, okay, cool. Maybe this will address the fact that we haven't seen Spider-Man or Doctor Strange or any of the other heroes that are in New York. I think the Thunderbolts is going to be set in New York from the trailers. Kamala Khan, we know, is, I guess, in California. But there are other people in New York. The fact that we don't see anybody or nobody's helping out, and at the end when he's like, we got to build a team and nobody's there, it feels weird in the context of the MCU. But to be honest, that is the least of my problems with the show. The show as a whole cohesively is all over the place. You kind of think the Muse is going to be the main villain for the show. And in episode 2, we see him go up to Heather and be like, I need help. And then we don't see him again until he's like Muse, and they've uncovered that he's killed like 60 people. And then suddenly he's with the therapist and he uncovers himself, and then he's dead. Like, there's no development given to him as well. And that's meant to be like, I guess, as semi-overarching plot. I don't know. Like, it's just a mess across the board with every single character. The only people that I think were okay were Frank when he shows up. Interestingly, I don't know, maybe he's an easier character to write. Who knows? And then Karen. When Karen shows up in episode 9, you're like, oh, wait, this is what side characters meant to be like. Or like, she's just so much more fleshed out than any of the characters that we spent a season with, and that sucks. Fisk has a whole team of people around him, and you aren't compelled by any of them. And then all the people Matt interacts with are so not compelling. Heather, like, he's meant to be in love with, and then at the end, she ditches him. And it's so weird. I don't understand this. She goes to Fisk at the end. Matt's apartment blew up. Is she not in the slightest bit concerned for him? And also she's aware that Fisk is a bad person. So what's the reasoning there? Like, stuff just doesn't make sense. Matt's whole storyline as well, like going back to Daredevil, we've seen it done in season 3 and it was done so much more like better. So when it's done in this season, it's just not compelling. All of the middle is like, I don't even remember most of it. Like, there's obviously the random like bottle episodes, I guess. But the whole stuff with Victor Ryalis, it goes nowhere. Like, that trial episode, I think, is maybe the best episode of the season, in my opinion. And then he's killed. But there's no, like, repercussions because of that. His niece, I guess, gets to, like, explore... Like, they're setting her up to be, I guess, another white tiger. But, like, Matt's not really dealing with that. That's not the inciting incident that makes him go back to being Daredevil. You could argue it's a compounding effect of all these, like, people who are being mistreated in New York, and he has to go fight for the little guy. But that just doesn't materialize. And then also at his work, they say stuff like that he wants to take on these, like, you know, cases that are about the little people that can't, like, stand up for themselves. But again, that just doesn't come to a head. Like, the show is so substanceless, it's really hard to engage with. I was just bored, honestly, throughout most of it. It's just all over the place as well. Bullseye, I guess, was kind of compelling. Again, though, they add a blue filter to the screen as if that's like meant to be compelling and interesting cinematography, but I don't think that is. Yeah, I struggled with this. I think they've set up an interesting season 2 with Fisk being in the position that he is, and the like. There's an interesting exploration of police brutality, I guess, that we could maybe go into. But even that, the original show had thematic elements they wanted to talk about where they were looking at the people affected by the people in charge in New York. And that seems to just go away. Maybe it's been replaced by those BB Urich, like little video montages that we get in between scenes that get so old so quickly. And that's in place of exploring real characters. I don't know. I guess the more I'm going to talk about this, the more I'm just going to find more issues with it. I somewhat liked Matt's character. Do you know what? No, the performances are great. Fisk's storyline is somewhat interesting. Vanessa's really interesting, actually. I think she gets given quite a bit. And I do like the reveal that she's the person that hired Foggy. But again, her character motivations at the end just like flipped for no reason. I kind of wanted her to be an opposition to Fisk. I think that would have been far more interesting. Yeah, it was just rough, and I struggled to understand who this show was for. Interestingly, because if you're a fan of the original, I don't think you're going to be a fan of this, or like you're going to enjoy it because it's Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio, and that's it. If you've not seen the original, I don't think you should watch this. It feels so poorly constructed that I just wouldn't suggest this as a show. And then if you're really into the MCU, I don't know if the repercussions that this will have on other stuff is that big. I genuinely don't know. Season 2, I hope they address the fact that the Defenders exist, because they have confirmed that they do exist in this world. If he's building a team, why aren't the Defenders there? Why was it just random people? Yeah, I don't know. They've just odd decision to kill off the characters that you had developed so much and replace them with characters that had nothing to them. I just can't believe how we get through an entire season and I don't think anybody's compelling. And I that's a season of television, and you could argue that it's 9 episodes. The original show had more. There's shows with like 6 episodes. The White Lotus, for one, actually. The first season, 6 episodes. You get so much depth in so many different characters, and they just aren't interested in doing that here. Okay, this is me from the future. I finished the recording, but I forgot to talk about Doctor Who. So I guess I will very briefly, because I said I would. Because this episode shocked me. If you heard my rant last week, I think we were both in agreement on how poor that episode was. This was good. Like, to my surprise, this was really fun. I still think there are issues there. There's definitely issues with the writing still. It's just not as strong as the previous iterations of the show. However, the villain was really strong and conceptually interesting. The cartoon animation stuff was so beautiful to look at as well. And I liked the escalation of that villain. The way that then became kind of meta was interesting. Then it got to the bit where it was like they're in Doctor Who and they know they're in Doctor Who. And I was like, oh no, are they just going to retroactively make the entire show a show canon? But then they added another layer of meta where the people that were telling them it was a show was fake. And I really enjoyed that. I actually thought it was quite smart. There's still some stuff that's like, how does XYZ happen? I kind of don't care, because I was like, this is the best episode that we've had in a while. I think it's the best episode since the 60th specials. It's Chuti's best episode, hands down. Belinda is now the best companion since 13's companions. like genuinely since Bill. I think Belinda already in 2 episodes is a better companion than all of the people between Bill and her. The Doctor seems to settle more into who his personality is in this episode as well. I just really liked it. It had the old school vibes back of something actually horrific has happened to people and they're investigating it. And I just really enjoyed it. Again, I acknowledge that there are certainly issues with the writing still here, but I couldn't help but have a smile on my face. So, yeah, it's kind of made me hopeful, which is not a good thing. I saw the next time on, and it was like, do you know when they would do the serious ones where it's like dark music and you know like something scary is gonna happen? I was like, okay, if we keep this up, next episode could be really good. But I don't want to do that because I'm like, this might just be a fluke. I hope it's not. I hope maybe there was just a little bit of struggle with the opening episode and having to be clunky writing because you're introducing the show to people. But who knows? I also do want to add, is the show just ending and did they confirm it in this episode? There's a really weird joke about how the show, and that's in air quotes, is going to end on the date that I guess it's the date that the penultimate episode airs, because that's the date that Belinda can't get back to. But is that then basically implying that they're going to end the show with this season? I'm not sure. And I also don't have faith that Russell's going to wrap up all of the stuff that he's set up. So like Mrs. Flood, the whole Snow Ruby situation, getting Belinda back, the gods. I think there's a lot there to wrap up in this short season. And I would rather them focus on Belinda as a character as well, since I'm enjoying her. But who knows? So yeah, that was a very quick Doctor Who thoughts part. I'm very curious to actually hear Owen listen to this, because I want to know what he thought of it as well. Okay, back to previous version of me. Anyway, let's do the final question of this episode, which is by the same person who submits all of our questions, who we haven't revealed, which is quite funny. I guess they shall stay anonymous for now. The question this week is, with the announcement of films to be shown at upcoming film festivals, what is your experience of attending them? Which ones have you been to? What are bucket list film festivals that you want to attend? How do they work? What films do you feel lucky to have seen so early at them? What were the vibes like? And do audiences actually applaud for ages afterwards? Oh, this is fun. So this is specifically given to me because the person submitting it knew it was a solo episode. And I've been quite lucky to have attended a lot of film festivals. Well, relatively a lot, I guess. I've been to Edinburgh multiple times. It's like the home festival. Longest running film festival in the world as well. I've been to Glasgow a few times as well, which is also a really lovely festival. London, a few times. Yeah, and then I've been to Venice twice. So one of the big three festivals. And technically me and Owen did go to like part of a Madrid festival. It was really interesting. Let's tackle this question by question, I guess. Experience of attending them. Edinburgh, I really encourage people to look up their like hometown festival, the nearest city to them. You'll often just get to see some films a little bit early, and it's such a fun vibe. Local festivals, you are engaging with the film scene there. You'll probably end up meeting people, like-minded people, and I really adore them. The people who run those festivals as well are also lovely. And there's just a nice vibe with local festivals. I'm saying local. Edinburgh's huge, but it feels local in comparison to some of the others that I've been to. Glasgow I did for when I was at uni. I applied for like press through my uni stuff and got through and did a few films in Glasgow, which was awesome. London during COVID, they spread across the UK. So actually it came up here for a little bit and I got to see so many great films early. Owen also attended that as well. I'm trying to remember what we saw. It would have been some Wes Anderson. The French Dispatch, Power of the Dog, Spencer, The Tragedy of Macbeth, Licorice Pizza, and I think there was another that year specifically. There's been tons. The London Film Festival is another one of those big ones where sometimes these movies have premiered elsewhere, but they're early for the UK. So that's always fun to see them a little bit early, because it often just means we're seeing it in line with the US, kind of. And Venice is, I highly encourage people, if you are aged under 25, no, that's Cannes. If you are a student, if you're a student who has studied, I think, some variation of film, but you might not have to have. I don't think you actually have to have. Maybe you do. If you're a student, look up Venice Film Festival. They have a pass that is specifically for students. It is €80, I think, and you can see every film that's there. You can't get into the press and industry screenings. However, the way that it does work, the day before a press and industry screening, if they're not filled, you can. So I ended up in some insane screens. Gosh, I don't want to mention. I really could rattle off tons. The best ones were probably William Friedkin's last movie that he made before he passed. Which oh my god, the name of the movie is slipping me. The Court Mutiny Marshal, something like that. That was a really special screening because the chair of Venice Film Festival that year was Damien Chazelle, who is like my favorite filmmaker, and he came out and gave a speech dedicated to William Friedkin. And it was I was so close to Damien Chazelle, and then hearing him talk about this filmmaker that inspired him and helped him, it was genuinely so beautiful. Wes Anderson premiered The Wonderful World of Henry Sugar at Venice, and I got to watch that with him in the room and got to see him accept an award and stuff. That was crazy. My friend, shout out Leora, she tried to dap Wes Anderson up. He did not dap her up, which so sad. Missed opportunity with Wes. And maybe I saw Hitman. I saw the premiere of Hitman, and Richard Linklater, we were like sitting behind him at the end of it, turned around and waved directly into Leora's camera, but he was waving at us, and we were like giddy after that. So I had such incredible experiences there. Let me just reread what is my experience of attending them. Which ones have I been to? Bucket list film festivals. Cannes is a bucket list film festival. I actually was meant to go to Cannes. I had a pass and everything. So that's if you're under 25, you can apply for Cannes. You can get a 3-day pass for Cannes. You just have to write an essay, and I got in, but COVID happened, so I sadly couldn't attend. And then the following year, I applied again. There was a gap because COVID. The next time I applied again, and then I had an exam during the weekend that I was given, so I couldn't go. So really hope to go to Cannes. I would love to go to some of the American ones. TIFF. I guess that's not American, Canadian. TIFF and Sundance are the two big American ones I'd love to attend. New York Film Festival as well seems really cool. Honestly, even just like some of the more niche, smaller ones. Film festivals are just such fun places to be if you're into film. So there's so many that I'd like to attend. How did/do they work? I guess I'll talk about Venice specifically. They all kind of work very similarly, but with Venice being the biggest, I think it's the most they've got a routine with what they're doing. It's, they've got systems in place. With the student pass for Venice, you signed up and you get access to a portal, and then each day, actually it worked slightly differently the two times that I've been there, but you wake up really early in the morning at like, I think it was like 5:30 or 6, and you book your tickets. When I went the first time, you booked the tickets for the following day. When I went the second time, you booked in like chunks of 3 days, which was far better because it meant not having to wake up super early every day. Um, and you just see what films are available. It is a lot of planning. There's so many films on. So we had like booklets, and we were like trying to schedule, making sure we could fit all the films in, and maybe get into a premiere if we could, and if there was a press screening, swapping stuff out. So it's a lot of logistical stuff in the morning, and then you leave, and then you basically watch films the entire day and hang out and eat food and talk to people, and it's lovely. That kind of is the case across the board. When I've done Edinburgh, it's kind of been similar. Glasgow, I only really went through for individual films. London Film Festival, that I haven't done it in London yet, so it was only like the COVIDy ones, so that worked kind of slightly differently. What films do I feel lucky to have seen so early at them? I mean, a lot of the ones that I mentioned, but I'll go for as well Tar. I got to see Tar without any knowledge of that movie, and that movie is phenomenal. If anybody hasn't seen it, oh, I adore it. It's so good. The Banshees of Inisherin. I was in a cinema that was like thousands of people. It was massive. It's like one that they construct specifically for the festival, I think. And nobody had any idea what the film was going to be. You know, it was a premiere. Well, not the premiere, but like not many people had seen it yet. And to sit in that room, I've never been in a room that a film has made people laugh so much. Like, the laughter was infectious. It's like, the movie's funny, and I really adore the movie, but that experience of like just everybody finding it so funny was so good. And also a movie, what's it called, the All the Beauty and the Bloodshed. It's a movie I managed to get in like I got the first row. I was sitting in like the first row, and not the corner seat, but like the second corner seat, like neck craned up at this massive screen. I was like, oh no, I'm like not gonna have a good time watching this. It was still constructed in a way slightly better than like multiplex cinemas, so it wasn't awful, but I was like, oh, this is gonna suck. That movie is phenomenal. If anybody hasn't seen it, it's like a documentary about this woman, Nan something, who she's a photographer, and it is partly her like a biopic told through photographs. So like a photo appears on screen, and then it's another photo, and it's just photos, and then another half of it is her trying to take down the Sackler family in America has a sign in, or had a sign in a museum, and it was her journey on trying to get that down because of the damage that the Sackler family has done to America. Two wildly different stories, and they come together so beautifully. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous movie. And it won the Golden Lion that year. So I got to see it before it won the prize. So before people were like properly like singing its praises. And I felt so lucky because I adored it then. And I was like, my feelings were validated as well by the jury, I guess. What were the vibes like? Vibes are great. The first time I went by myself. And it was a little bit awkward. I kind of thought, oh, most of the people here speak Italian. I don't speak Italian, so I don't know how many like meaningful conversations I'll have with people. But I met some lovely people. One guy specifically, we just ended up like sitting at like a cafe bit together, and we were talking about like what each other does. And he was telling me, oh yeah, I'm away to meet Darren Aronofsky, Brendan Fraser, and Sadie Sink for dinner. And I was just sitting there like, whoa, what? Like, that's crazy to be in such close proximity that's people's lives. He was like the Italian distributor for A24, and they were there with The Whale, so he was just going to talk to them. Mad. Like, you just end up hearing little bits and bobs and stories of like different people in their jobs. It's Yeah, it's so fun. And if you can attend, if you're a student specifically, I could not recommend Venice enough. Um, yeah, it's a phenomenal experience. Do audiences actually applaud for ages afterwards? Yes. Oh my god, I should really mention that I got to see a movie called Aggro Drift. I imagine not a lot of people have heard of this. If you want a fun movie for like friends, to get drunk and watch, I couldn't recommend Aggro Drift enough. It is a like insane movie. It's by Harmony Korine. I don't even want to tell you what the movie's about. It's insane. That movie had such like fever pitch fans for him. We went to a midnight screening, which was nuts, by the way, because you're up at like 6. Me and my friend went to a midnight screening. The energy in that room was mental. And we had to leave to get the last boat back to the island where we were staying. And we were like, surely that applause, that's not going to go on for that long. It's so late. Apparently went on for like 15 minutes, and it's the most insane movie ever. Like, we had other friends that went and watched it who we were there with, and they both rated like half a star. And it got that long an applause. I think the longest that I was in maybe was one where the filmmakers were in attendance. Oh, no. I'm not too sure. But sometimes you're running from film to film. Sometimes you don't stay. Sometimes if it is a movie that like you did think was great, you'll stay as long as you can. But yeah, maybe the longest that I stayed was like 10 minutes. They do go on ridiculously long. And I genuinely think it is just like awkwardness. People don't know when to stop. I do enjoy some when you're in a premiere with some of the filmmakers. Some of the filmmakers, they do their bows and they graciously take the applause and then they leave. They just like leave after a few minutes. They're like, I'm done with this. And then it's like they leave the doors and then everybody stops. Because why clap? They're not there anymore. Yeah, that was an overview, I guess, of festival stuff. I will happily talk about more festival stuff if people have more questions. They are so much fun. And if you can go to them, go to them. Attend your local festivals as well. Support them. Because they're equally as cool. Just, I guess, the stories that I have from Venice are a little bit cooler than the stories that I have from my local stuff. But anyway, good God, I got through a solo episode, guys. That was Plot to Go. Thank you so much for joining me. If there's anybody still listening at this point, thanks. This was genuinely a test of my skills on just fucking speaking into a mic, and I guess I am able to do that for over an hour. Maybe I should reevaluate my life, that I don't need another person here to just talk at a camera. But hey, if Emma Chamberlain can do it, so can I. Next week, I actually don't know what we're going to be talking about because we're back to shitters. And I really don't want to see some of them. So Until Dawn is coming out, which is based on the video game. Well, loosely based. Apparently it's like not faithful to the video game at all. And I really don't fancy seeing that. But that feels like the big movie coming out. There's also a movie called The Legend of Ochi, which we might talk about. To be honest, what I really want to try see, and it did come out this week if I'm not mistaken, but just not wide, is a movie called Freaky Tales that has, oh my gosh, actors' names, people in it. It's from the directors who did. Oh, do you know what? I'm just going to bring it up. Why not? If people are listening still, they can hear. Okay, it's from the people who did Captain Marvel, which, like, stay with me. It's got such good reviews. It's starring so many cool people. Jay Ellis, Pedro Pascal, Ben Mendelsohn, Normani, Dominique Thorne, Jack Champion, and a plethora of other people. And it's got like amazing reviews. I love the sound of the plot, so I might try see that. Who knows? Join us next week, and I guess you'll find out. Any questions? leave them in the Spotify comments and we'll answer them next episode. If you enjoyed this, make sure to follow us on Instagram and TikTok, because we post little clips there and other fun stuff. Follow us on Spotify as well if you are listening on Spotify or wherever you listen. We're on any podcast platform, and we're also on YouTube. Thanks so much for listening, and I guess I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.